Well, hello, friends. Today I got a secret for you. Are you trying to figure out a secret to feeling beautiful? How about vitality? Do we all want to have vitality? How about inner peace, calm, and just being the best version of ourselves? Well, if you've read the Pro Aging Playbook, or you know me, or you've listened to me before, you may know what this is. But the secret? Transcendental Meditation. Now, most of you know what this is, but it is mine, like several million people around the world. It is a practice that we do for ourselves twice a day, 20 minutes a day, very simply. And if you know me, it is part of my secret sauce. It changed my life 8 years ago for the better. And it comes from within. It's not a fancy diet. It's not in a needle that I inject into people's faces. It's not in an exercise routine. It is something that is simply taught consistently around the world and is accessible to everybody. And the best surprise of today is who I have with me to talk about that journey, Mr. Bob Roth. He is one of the most familiar names with the Transcendental Meditation movement. He is the OG. He is the Grand Poobah, and he has several titles to his name. First and foremost, he is a teacher. He has taught tens of thousands of people Transcendental Meditation. He is a best-selling author. He is also CEO of the David Lynch Foundation, who has taught me and has taught up to millions of people around the world, people who are seeking it and people who are in need of Transcendental Meditation. And he's just one of those guys that spends his days changing people's lives and making them the best version of themselves. And I couldn't think of a better person to have on the Pro Aging podcast than someone just like this. So, Bob, I hope that was a good introduction for you. Thank you so much for being on my podcast, really.
Well, it's wonderful to be on your show, and I admire the work that you do, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to talk with the people who trust you.
Now,
so thank you for having me.
I'm really hoping you're a popular guy. I hope we get as many listens as you and Katy Perry. You know what I mean? I know they all came for you. Okay.
Oh, yeah. At least 3 or 4.
Yeah. So, I know most of the people that know me, my patients, my listeners, the people who've read my book, they've heard about my journey, which started 8 years ago, and just one of those typical people who are very fortunate their whole lives that I just felt like I had so much, but I lived with such frustration. And as a birthday gift to my wife, not only did I give her the gift of getting trained, the gift was that I would do it with her. And as a Western physician, I was one of those guys who was like, yeah, transcendental meditation, it's like spiritual, la-di-da, blah, blah, blah. I really knew very little about it. But I did the most important thing we could all do in life, which is keep an open mind. And ever since those 8 years have passed, it's transformed me into what I think is a pretty great guy, and most importantly, filled with joy. I know a question I have for you, which I'm sure so many people ask you, is what brought you to it? How, when, why? Tell me your story.
Okay, I'm happy to, but I have to get back. Is your wife happy that you learned?
Oh my God.
Those changes? Tell me about your wife.
She's still married to me. That's the most important thing. Yeah, she is. I mean, we do it together. We do it with you on your phone calls. We do it separately. And, it's really changed our lives. We've got our children doing it. They're not as good. Sometimes they roll their eyes, but they're always better off when they do it with us. I have a 15-year-old son and a 12-year-old girl. And, it's now part of our lives, like brushing our teeth and exercising and watching what we eat and going to work every day.
Well, I think, with the work that you're doing on pro-aging and just your book and everything, and now with TM, I think you're ahead of the curve. And I'm going to answer your question in just a second, but I think that your experience today, within 3 or 4 years, is going to be common, because I think Transcendental Meditation is going to be understood and incorporated by more and more people, whether it's part of the healthcare system, reimbursable through insurance companies, offered through companies. I think it's just a matter of time. But I congratulate you, 8 years ago, seeing its value and really being a thought leader on the whole thing. So I learned to meditate. I was a college student, just some 18-year-old college kid, going to school full-time and working full-time with the usual disruptions that take place during your first year away at college, except this was on steroids because it was in the late 60s. Yeah. And I was not a druggie or a hippie. I just wanted to get a good education and do something to change the world. I had worked for Bobby Kennedy when I was a high school student. So a pretty stressed out guy. My dad was a medical doctor, so I was a skeptic, science-based mind, wasn't into any new agey sorts of woo-woo stuff. But a lot of people I knew who I respected were doing something called Transcendental Meditation. So I decided to learn it. And, within the first few days, I got such a deep state of relaxation from the meditation. And I'm, as I said, a skeptical guy and was tightly wound. But it was so significant that I realized at that time it was going to be an important part of my life, and it has been. It's been over 50 years. Yeah. And a few years later, I became a teacher, and I've been teaching it ever since. So I learned it for the reason most people learn it, which is better health, less stress, more of a greater focus on ability to focus sharply, and also an inner contentment and inner happiness.
Yeah. I was similar to you. I was like one of those people who's like, I'll never get hypnotized. I'll never get hit. And you're out.
Yeah, I know. It's unbelievable.
It hit me like that. My wife and other people that I've turned on to the David Lynch Foundation, some people it takes a little time. It's tough to let go of those constraints that we wrap our heads around and to just let your body do what it's supposed to do. And I think one of the things you've taught me and the David Lynch Foundation is that it doesn't have to go the same way for everybody.
No, everybody's physiology is different. And transcendental meditation, at every moment it's different. Different hormones, different neurotransmitters, different enzymes, just different. Yeah. And so transcendental meditation is not one of these things that tries to impose like a hypnosis, or even certain types of meditation where you try and force your mind to be calm, like waves on the surface of the ocean, trying to stop the waves. In Transcendental Meditation, we just effortlessly access that calm that lies underneath the waves. It's always there. Yeah. We've just lost access. And so that process of diving within, of settling down, is so natural, and it's different every single time, but it doesn't matter, because even in a shallow dive, we get wet. And Absolutely. That's why we're doing it, for the refreshment.
And, I love how every time I hear you speak, particularly now, you really focus on the science of things. Now, again, I'm a physician. Most people, they come to me for more aesthetic, cosmetic things, but I really try and focus on the whole picture, because I think feeling good, looking good, they're not mutually exclusive things. But what attracted me most about Transcendental Meditation is that it had so much scientific basis. There were so many studies, and I believe all forms of meditation, correct me if I'm wrong, were originally rooted in some sort of spiritual or religious type of movement. At what point did Transcendental Meditation become more of a scientific movement where people didn't have to worry about, going to some sort of religious type of event?
It's a great question. I think that in its origin, it had nothing to do. I mean, Transcendental Meditation is not a religion, not a religious practice, and in its origin, it was not a religion. It was a practice that anyone could do. This predates Hinduism and Buddhism and Catholicism and Judaism. It just was a practice. You just did it. And then I think it got, religious movements or philosophical movements adopted it and sort of wrapped their garb around it, and maybe to enhance the religious experience. And I think what's happened today is just it's going back to its original state, which is it's not a religion. There's nothing to believe in. It's a neurophysiological practice. People who have a religion find that the benefits, they appreciate their own religion more. People who don't have a religion just sort of want to live in harmony with nature, if you want to use that term. They find that easier. So I think it's just going back to its original roots.
Yeah, and it is probably the most scientifically studied form of meditation, correct? I mean, I know blood pressure, anxiety, post-traumatic stress. I mean, there's so many aspects. And even a guy like me who, I haven't done the studies, but I guarantee you, Bob, it makes you look objectively better when you're peaceful, when you're happy. I have had patients, And I tell this story in the pro-aging playbook where I do the same things to them consistently. And they do okay, but there's always some level of dissatisfaction. Can you do more? Can you do this? And I speak to them about exercise and losing weight and meditating and focusing on relationships. And sometimes people listen and they come back and they think I've done something different, something better. And it was the meditation. It was changing their lives that made them feel more beautiful.
Well, I'm 70 years old.
I mean, you look 22.
No. But no, I never get sick. I have more energy now than I had when I was in my 20s and 30s. I've been meditating for 50 years. And people go, 50 years? How could you meditate for 50 years? I said, I've been brushing my teeth longer than that.
I know.
It's just part of the life. And people also say, well, 20 minutes twice a day, how do you find the time? And I say, well, there's 1,440 minutes in a day. And we're talking about 40 minutes out of 1,440 for some profound and natural, effortless, enjoyable self-care. Yeah. What better investment could you make?
Yeah, that's what people always say. How do you find the time? Because, I look like a very busy guy. I'm a very busy guy. I got a lot of things going on, but I'm just like, I don't forget to brush my teeth. I don't forget to shower. Maybe I'll forget to brush my teeth sometimes, but I try not to forget to meditate.
But you get reminded pretty quick.
Yeah, exactly. And I just say, you'd be shocked at how much more time you find when you're able to get through the static of life. And that's what Transcendental Meditation does. I wanted to talk about some of the amazing stuff that David Lynch Foundation does, because I've been to many of your events. I've had the opportunity to shake your hand and be around amazing people, people in need, celebrities, normal people trying to better themselves. I know you.
Celebrities who are in need.
Oh, yes, that's true. That's right. Celebrities aren't in need, right? Of course. We all are, and I think that's the common thread. But you do work with veterans and correctional facilities and underprivileged or abused people, and I think we're now just realizing that this is such an important component to philanthropy, is teaching Transcendental Meditation. What are some of the current stuff that you're working on with David Lynch?
Well, the foundation was started 16 years ago to bring this evidence-based meditation technique to at-risk, under-resourced populations, vulnerable populations. And we started with kids and children who are growing up in the U.S. in crime-ridden neighborhoods, internationally in war-torn neighborhoods. We've now provided scholarships for 1 million kids to learn to meditate, do TM for free. We're working with veterans, tens of thousands of veterans. We're starting a study right now in 9 VA hospitals around the country, looking at the effects of TM and its effects on the brain for suicide, for post-traumatic stress, for depression, anxiety, insomnia, substance use disorder. The purpose of the study, this large-scale study, is to secure government funding. So that, it's called TRICARE, that's the insurance company for veterans and military, active duty military, so that any veteran, the 1 million vets with PTSD, can learn to meditate. Yes, they can have a prescription for their Valium or their high blood pressure medication and have it reimbursed. Well, the same thing with TM. And we're working with, as you said, women and children who are survivors of domestic violence. But one of the areas that we're most excited about now is frontline healthcare providers who are just, and so we're in 25 hospitals around the country. We're doing major research studies. Again, research on burnout, resilience, anxiety, such that TM can be covered by insurance companies for anybody who's suffering from stress.
I mean, you took the words out of my mouth, because as a healthcare provider, but also as a COVID victim who was sick in March and I was on home oxygen, and I had friends working in hospitals tell me, don't come here, they're going to intubate you. I was really, for 14 days with 103.5 fever, I was in my mind saying goodbye to people. It was a very tough time, and the post-traumatic stress that still comes out, TM has really helped me. I mean, listening to you doing the daily meditations twice a day really helped me, not even so much more after I got better than even when I was sick. I must say, it was really the first time ever that I was so sick it was difficult to meditate. But it really has been so useful. So I could attest to not only being a healthcare provider, but also being a victim of something, that how important it is. Has the government, since you've been CEO, has the government and insurance, have people been more responsive?
Very much more responsive. And one of the reasons is this whole issue of mental health is coming to the forefront.
Yeah.
And you know, as a physician, that understanding the pathology of a disease, the origins of a disease in the physical body, there's a much greater scientific understanding. Oh, you have an infection, let's do this. Mental issues of anxiety, depression, bipolar disorder, all these different, they don't really know what's going on.
Yeah.
So the medications are sort of, use the word cosmetic. They do calm, they can calm the anxiety for some people or calm the depression, but it doesn't get to the root cause.
That's true.
And now they're finding with Transcendental Meditation that here's a simple technique, practice 15, 20 minutes twice a day, sitting comfortably in a chair with your eyes closed. You learn from a trained teacher. It takes about an hour a day over 4 days, very simple. Your body gains a state of rest and relaxation, in many regards deeper than the deepest part of deep sleep, while your active, excited, thinking mind just has a chance to just settle down a bit.
Yeah.
And that experience, they call it restful alertness, transformative to your mind and body.
How is the foundation and all the centers dealing with all the uptick in students? I mean, are you doing Zoom courses? How are you training people?
Well, the schools, it's a pretty tough thing because the kids are in school, they're out of school, they're in school, they're out of school. So we're not really in a position to teach a lot more children through the schools. But the kids who have learned, the tens of thousands of kids who have learned, we're following up with them, as they wish, online.
But what about at the centers? At the centers?
Well, the centers are active. The Transcendental Meditation is, as you know, Paula, is not a mass meditation where you just sort of, listen to a guided this and they tell you what to do, or breathing thing. This is a real gold standard, high touch. So the technique is taught. It takes about an hour a day or so over 4 consecutive days. And the first day is always in personal instruction, one-to-one. Yeah. The next days can be in person, or else it can now be remote. But that one-to-one, and we're socially distancing, and we're teaching people all over the country. Yeah. It's slowed down in some regards, but picked up in other regards. So It's such a confusing time. Yeah. Such a confusing time for people right now, and what greater tool to have to add to your arsenal than the ability to take this profound rest at will.
And you know what? I'll remind people out there who are interested, what's amazing is when you get trained, and I've spoken to people who've been trained by you, who've been trained in other cities and the things, it's a consistent approach. It's a simple and consistent approach, but it is essential to go through it. This is not something you could learn online, okay? It's essential to go through the process. And it's so universally consistent and simple. And it's essential. And what is really nice about the David Lynch Foundation is that there are so many things to get involved in. Once you pay your fee or get your training, you could show up at a David Lynch Foundation, at a center, and use it and develop resources, take additional seminars and classes, but it's not like you're forced to do anything or buy into anything. And I think that's what a lot of people think about meditation group type of things.
Yeah. I am by nature, I don't like to join groups. Yeah. By nature, my family and I like my own privacy. And the lovely thing about Transcendental Meditation, you don't have to join anything. Yeah. You learn a technique, you take it home with you. Veterans, I have to say, in particular, like this, Paul, because they're suspicious of groups, and they don't like to have group counseling, and they don't. So this is a tool they learn over those few days. They take it home with them, and they have it for the rest of their lives. And now, because of COVID, and you mentioned this earlier, twice a day, and it gets repeated every day for a year now, I've been doing these Zoom meditations, where it's just a little reminder of the effortlessness of the meditation, and then some scientific facts. And 8,000 people join those. But again, you're not joining something. You can just anonymously tune in, right? Have you enjoyed those?
It's really amazing. And I have to say, it's something that was mentioned during my original training 8 years ago. I had tried going on one of your original Sundays because you traditionally always did it on Sundays. And then you did this amazing thing. I mean, I'm assuming you're a very busy guy, but you go down to the most essential component of what you do, which is you're a teacher and you're somebody who meditates and you share it with people. And by taking the time out of your life and your schedule to do this for people is just like, it's such a wonderful thing. I mean, I got to thank you endlessly for it. And it's such a great journey. And as Bob says, he repeats it throughout the day. So if you can't actually do it live with all the other people, but I did want to talk about this. I believe they call it the Maharishi effect. This kind of like if you meditate with other people, there's something cellular that can go on to affect the world around you. Tell me about that.
Well, there's a term in physics called the field effects.
Field effects.
Field effects are, I mean, you're here. We do it all the time. We're talking right now via Zoom because of the field effects of the electromagnetic field. Information is being communicated through the electromagnetic field. You make a phone call on this little cell phone, and we don't even think anything about it, and someone is in Mongolia and they pick up the phone.
Yeah.
It's not magic. It would have been thought to have been magic 200 years ago, but now we understand there's fields in nature that connects everyone and everything together. Well, the deepest level of life, according to physics, that connect us together, is the unified field. Okay. That's, a basis of everything. In ancient times, the ancient scientists of meditation, consciousness, said that's a field of consciousness, that underlying everyone and everything is the field of consciousness. It sounds a little woo-woo, but not from if you talk to a quantum physicist.
No, it's physics.
It's physics. So what we do when we meditate is when I settle down and experience in the most comfortable, gentle way, it's not a trance. People say, oh, you meditate for 20 minutes. How do you know when your 20 minutes are up? I say, you look at your watch. You're not going anywhere. And you just settle down to the deepest level of your own nature. Turns out that's the deepest level of nature's nature. So interesting. And that connection, that's the level that we all, the human beings, we all connect together. And when enough people experience that, it has a positive influence, a calming influence in the whole environment. So there's research that shows 1% of a population meditates, practices TM, social indicators of stress, societal indicators of stress, like crime, violence, war deaths, all these things settle down as society becomes calmer. And there's a lot of published research, controlled research, that shows it's true. So that's exciting, and I think that's a new area of further explanation of examination by science that's going to come to the forefront in the next few years.
My 15-year-old, every year for the last 10 years, we always got him the Guinness Book of Records. He loves that thing, always going through it. And I gotta assume, and there's some crazy stuff in there. I gotta assume there's a record for the highest number of people who are practicing transcendental meditation at one time.
Yeah, I think that they've done, for short periods of time, I know they had something in Washington, D.C., where they had 4,000 people twice a day for 2 months, and they measured crime rate, and there was a fall in crime rate. But what we're doing these days for now 11 months, 5, 6, 7, 8,000 people, nearing 10,000 people twice a day, I think that's near a record.
Wow. Because you're meditating too. I'm assuming you've meditated in so many different ways throughout your life, alone, with family.
I'm having this. I've said this before, that what's going on right now with these meditations, in 50 years, I've never enjoyed the practice more than I'm enjoying it now. Can't you sort of feel when it's time? You just sort of feel some settling down, don't you? Can't you sort of...
I mean, immediately your body becomes programmed to it. That's why it's like... And again, there are some times I listen to the recording, but there's nothing better. I really feel like you're in the room with everybody meditating. It's really...
Yeah, we're all in the room together.
I know.
All in the room together. It's really... Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Finish what you were saying.
No, I think that there is an underlying harmony or unity to human beings, that stress and tension and frustration and that covers over and makes the differences dominate. Yeah. And so it's like a couple. When they're tired and stressed, nothing good about that relationship. Nothing good. but then you get some rest.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I know, nobody does. But you get some rest and you meditate. Oh, it can be a whole family. And you just eat better and maybe a vacation, and you look at the other person and you go, oh, that's why I've been living with you for all these years. Yeah. The love has a chance, the unity has a chance to come to the surface. Yeah. And without that, it's just an intellectual thing. It's just, oh, I should love my family. But when they're stressed, it's differences. And so the idea with meditation is, Transcendental Meditation, it's a missing link to just what's something for thousands of years, reduce the stress, and then when you look at the people around you, you look at them with more compassion and more love rather than anger and fear.
Yeah. It changes, it cleans the glasses a little bit, and people have to, the commitment is giving yourself the opportunity to find that settled state. And I think that's the biggest hump for everybody to get over. And I always talk about this with like the pro-aging lifestyle, is that if you give yourself a little opportunity, you'd be amazed at what you could accomplish. And you'd be amazed at how much extra time you have, how much more you can do, how much more you could accomplish, as opposed to restricting yourself. People used to be about, I feel like the world is changing a little bit, modern world, about how we look at self-care. It used to be cool to get less sleep and never have time for family and overwork yourself. And I think we're realizing now that program isn't working for the world. And if you give yourself a little bit, you can not only give yourself so much more, but you can give so much more to those around you. And unless there's that relationship with the universe and the world and people around you, what are we good for?
We end up in our craving desire to be loved and love, and we're isolated, we're lonely, we're unhealthy, we're sad, we're depressed. And then you look at all the advertising which says this is how you're happy, if you have this, if you look like, if you do this, all this stuff. It's all outer. Yeah. And it's a dead-end street. And
now, my business is in the outer, but I tell people all the time, because they're so surprised, that, just because you meditate or you give time to yourself doesn't mean that you can't still engage with the outer world and lose your ego completely, because there are only so many things that you can do inner. I mean, I still like making people look good on the outside. People still want to have a nice home and work hard and achieve and accomplish things, but you can have both. You know what I mean?
No, you have to have both.
Yeah.
You have to have both.
Yeah.
That's the point. When I was saying that thing about it's if we think only the outer, and you see it all the time. I see it all the time. People come in with so much wealth, so much fame, so much power, beauty, empty inside.
Yeah.
Empty inside. But then you just start filling up from the inside, and then all these other things are a joy. So absolutely, we want to look good, we want to feel good, we want to be successful. They say, with Transcendental Meditation, we talk about living 200% of life, 100% inner and 100% outer. And that's life.
That's having your cake and eating it too.
No, it's exactly right. And one without the other is not enough. It's not balanced. Oh, I'm just going to om and meditate and no, that's unnatural. And it's also unnatural to think that just running and forcing and all that stuff alone is going to be enough.
Did you ever, I know the answer to this is because you speak so much with so much knowledge about medicine and physiology and quantum physics. You clearly have an interest in this stuff, right? You're not total novice, people just feeding you lines. Come on.
No, the fact of the matter is I love life.
Yeah.
And I love everything about life. And, I love the fact that emotions, happiness, sadness, love, hate, that those actually are not emotions that are devoid of the limbic system and the cardiovascular system, that it's one continuum. So my fascination with and desire to be happy or to love or be loved and to know more about that extends all the way to, well, how is my body changing? Because the mind and body, as you know, are one. And so I'm absolutely deeply fascinated by everything because I think it's life. And I just think sometimes science has been taught, with such words like, the ventral medial this in the brain, and there's off-putting. But the fact is, there's little parts of your brain that just influence everything and your life. And if you do something, to eat something right, or get enough sleep, or meditate, it has such profound effects in such tiny ways. It's life transforming. So I think it's really important for everyone to know what's going on in their brain, just as well as to know what's going on in their heart or their liver or their kidneys.
Yeah.
Don't you agree?
It's unbelievable. And these things aren't sitting on the opposite side of the cafeteria anymore. We can now talk about the mind, body, and all these things. And it's exactly why I'm sitting here. And I know that's why you've been doing this for 50 years, because you have this belief, and you know the more you can share it, the better we're all going to be. And, this is why the most important question of this interview that's coming up is, how are people going to find more about TM? Tell people where they can go, please, Bob.
So simple. Just go to tm.org. It's a nonprofit educational organization, been around for 60 years. 10 million people have learned Transcendental Meditation from all religions or not religions, all educational backgrounds, cultures, nationalities. TM.org, you can find out on that where there's a local TM center near you. There's almost 200 of them in the U.S. You can call the center and find out where they can, where there's get an introductory talk online, and then research it, and then give it a try. People used to say, "Oh, meditation, that's for the wealthy people here or there," which fine, they should have it, but it's for everybody. It's no longer just a luxury. This is now an essential basis of a survival tool, I think, a tool for survival and thriving in life.
And it is very affordable, people. It is very affordable. What it's done for me, I feel like they should be getting a yearly VIG from me, but they don't. But I do show up to their events. I hope this summer in the Hamptons, I hope that we could shake hands again and meet face to face and share that journey. And I think we will be able to do that.
Can I say one last thing?
Oh, yeah, please. Tell me 10 more things.
So, when we hear Dr. Paul talk, and he advises you to, I know it's Frank, but I call you Dr. Paul.
Please.
And, when you hear Dr. Paul talk about, well, you should do this for your health, or eating, or this, or that, it's wisdom. And it's wisdom, and it should not be just in one ear and out the next. We all want to be happy. We all want to be healthy. Nobody wants to suffer. And everybody's hopefully proactively aging, but we're aging, and we want it to be smooth. And I'm telling you this, and he didn't ask me to say this, he has the wisdom of the ages in what he's talking about. And there's two sayings that I remember growing up. One is, casual attention brings casual results. If you're just casual about something, you put in the time. You want to have a good relationship with your children, you have to put in the time. You want to have something good at work, you have to put in the time. Relationship with your partner, you put in the time. You want to have a good relationship with yourself, you put in the time. Don't ignore it. And in the case of TM, it's just a few minutes, profound effects. And the last thing, I know I'm going on here, the last thing I want to say is, I was taught growing up, there are two keys, fundamentals of success in life, no matter what it is. Conviction, you believe deeply, and I believe in this relationship. I have a conviction in this relationship. I have a conviction in what I'm doing. Conviction, it's a vertical thing to the core of my being, and persistence. That's horizontal over time. You're not going to get well overnight. Pardon?
Grit. I like the word grit.
Grit. Absolutely. Those two things, key to everything. So I'm really grateful to have been asked to be on the show, and I hope I get to see you again soon.
You will. And I don't know if you know this. Just when you go, you could say goodbye to me. Do you know how famous your goodbye is on those phone calls, right? I mean, if I tell you, my wife and I and everyone I know that does it, there's something that just fills your heart with the way this guy says goodbye. And I'm going to give him a cue on a 1, 2, 3, and I want him to say it personally to me the way he does it on the phone, because to me it is just the cherry on the cake, Bob. And I know you know.
Before they hear it. So I was born in Washington, D.C., sort of some of my family members from the South So my family growing up, we would just always say bye. Well, I started saying this on the calls, and now anyway. So
And that's it. So, Bob, thank you so much for coming on. And I'm going to give you a cue, and I wish you the best. I'm going to see you soon. 1, 2, 3.
bye.
Thanks, everybody. See you later.
Bye.